Hello, everybody, and welcome to our next workshop for the University of Ethereum. This is our first workshop of 2024, and I'm really excited today to bring up our guest, Jimi Cohen. So Jimi, yeah, I see him in the background on StreamYard, all excited. So yeah, Jimi is the CEO and founder of Treegens, and a really great example of someone who is using blockchain to solve real-world problems. And that is our whole focus here at the University of Ethereum, and also encouraging our students to learn by doing. So yeah, without further ado, I'm just going to bring Jimi up to give his introduction, and then we'll get into the presentation today. What's up, Jimi?
What up? Thank you so much for having me, Rachel.
Hey.
This is awesome that you're putting this together. Thank you. Quick intro. So my name's Jimi. I broke the world record for most trees planted in a day by one person twice, doing it a third time in February. And ultimately, we are growing a movement of regenerators around the world through the most rewarding and transparent tree planting technology, which definitely ties into the blockchain. So excited to get into all of that.
Absolutely, yeah. So not one Guinness World Record, but two Guinness World Records of the most trees planted in a single day. Or rather, the first one, you didn't have the Guinness World Record person there to count, right? So you had to do it again.
Yeah, and actually, that's why I'm doing it a third time, because so the second time we did intend to get Guinness involved. It was in Kenya, and they were going to fly over there to certify everything, but a protest broke out because of the elections and things like this. People were unhappy and they didn't think it was safe. So they're like, all right, well, we can still certify if you film the entire thing for 24 hours. It's a 24-hour tree planting competition. And you have two independent witnesses. One of them has to be a tree specialist, and they rotate every 4 hours. We had everything set up, and it was bucketing rain. Like, it was just pouring down rain. And even though we had this plastic thing around the camera to protect it, some water got in there, fried the inverter. And even though we had a backup camera to still film the whole thing, we lost several gigabytes of footage. And so not all of the planting footage could get certified in the end. So that's why I'm doing it a third time here in Thailand with Guinness on site, so that they can actually just get it certified in one shot. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
Well, hey, I mean, it's not a bad thing for our planet, right? Like, having to do it a third time.
Exactly.
I'm sure, everybody on planet Earth thanks you, Jimi, for the work you're doing. Yeah, so for today, we're going to be talking about more about Treegens, how the community can get involved, and how students can, get involved in their local community and also get involved in the Treegen community. So a couple of things we're going to be talking about, just kind of following the cadence of other workshops we've done. We've talked about real world problems and how blockchain can be used to leverage and help solve these problems. We've also discussed where Web 2 solutions have fallen short and where we can do better with Web 3 technologies. So a couple things we're going to be talking about is transparency, funding and incentives, and value alignment of different projects that have tried to create solutions for our climate crisis. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Jimi, and Jimi, we can start the presentation.
Let's grow. Excited to get into this. And I'm going to try to add as much value as humanly possible to fuel the next generation of biddlers in the space. So I see we've got this. Let's grow. The slides are also in backstage, if you could bring those up. Okay, amazing.
Yep.
All right. Here we grow. Look at these two amazing people up there. All right. Okay, so cool. So we're going to be talking about Treegens. As I said, broke the record for most trees planted in a day by one person. We're gearing up to break the next record, which is most trees planted by any number of people. That's actually 560 million trees planted in a day. A little bit more about myself. I planted my first tree when I was 4 years old, and have been around environmental stuff, from a young age. But it was really once I got involved in a community, such as Rotary clubs, that I learned mangrove trees absorb 8 to 10 times more carbon out of the atmosphere compared with ultra-terrestrial forests. For 7 years of my life, I was raising funds for good causes. I was knocking on doors, convincing people to donate. I was selling products at events to raise funds. I was throwing big events in order to raise funds for established institutions, nonprofits that were doing the good work on the ground. And I was hoping two things. A, they would be efficient with the funds, and B, they would be transparent, and we could update all the people that supported us so that we can show them the impact, and they would be able to get more excited about continuously supporting us. And those two things weren't always the case. I remember one time I was following up with a particular organization about a year after contributing, not a small sum of money, it was a pretty significant amount of money. And this kind of ties into some of the problems here around transparency. I was following up, like, hey, this is actually for a clean water project. I was like, can we get an update? Can we get an update, please? Sounded great, amazing. So I was following up for an update, and eventually they're like, okay, you know what? We'll bring you the update. We'll come to your office. I was like, okay, you could have just emailed me, but sure, you're welcome. Come through. So they came through, and they had a printout of the water project. And on this printout, it had an image, and it also had their logo, and it didn't have their current logo on it. It didn't have their previous logo on it. It actually had their logo before their previous logo. This was an ancient update, ladies and gentlemen, that they brought to me, and they were just like, here you go. That's your update. And it was very clear that something is broken here. These are recycled updates, and they're sent to so many people. And sure enough, scandals came out, and they were sending the same updates to multiple people, telling a bunch of different groups they all entirely funded a clean water project. And this is where it became very clear, as I said, things were broken, and we had to do things a different way. And we got a one-way ticket over to East Africa. We started out in Uganda, and then Kenya, and then Tanzania. And like I said, we got involved in these Rotary clubs, and I learned how efficient mangrove trees are at fighting the climate crisis. And I also learned, my friend was bugging me actually from university. He was hitting me up, and he actually studied blockchain, and he was like, Jimmy, everyone's using these NFTs to bring more transparency and raise funds for good causes. You should really look into it. And he kept bugging me about it. And then finally, I went down that rabbit hole and got completely engrossed and learned a lot of nitty gritty. I've done about 400 episodes so far of this show called Max Impact, which is all about empowering change makers to maximize their positive impact through the latest and greatest technology. And it's almost always about Web3 because there is so much impact that can be made. And I'll get into just what that can unlock in a moment. But before we do, I usually start Max Impact with a question of why. Because as Nietzsche said, if you can find a why that is strong enough, you can endure almost any how. So in this talk, I'm going to share with you guys, yes, how blockchain can be used to solve the climate crisis and many impactful issues around the world, but also how you can unlock unstoppable motivation, how you can tap into this energy source, your own personal why, and make your impact in the world that you're born to make, ultimately. And so that is how the why connects to the how and ultimately the what of what you might want to get involved in the blockchain space. And so I'm going to be touching on that. And if there's time, I'll also be sharing the meaning of life. Sounds good? Let us know in the chat if you're excited. Say, let's grow. Type let's grow, capital grow, GROW. And let's get into it. Let's grow, shall we? So what's my why? Well, in 2019, you guys probably saw on the news the forest fires that completely swept across the country of Australia, where I'm originally from. I was born in Sydney, even though I don't sound like it because I lived all over. 3 billion animals were burnt alive. Let that sink in. That's like 300 holocausts, and these are sentient beings. They're able to experience pleasure and pain. And there was a lot of suffering. And as an empath who feels emotions, instead of looking away, I forced myself to watch these videos of these animals getting burnt alive. And it, honestly, guys, it broke me. Like I broke down. I was in a really dark place. And it wasn't until I launched a little fundraiser back in the Facebook fundraiser days. I launched one, raised a few $1,000, and it started to feel good. Like I was able to do something about this massive problem of climate change. And it's in taking those actions and experimenting with a lot of different things that I was able to feel this energy source. So, okay, so now people look at me and they're like, all right, this guy, he's done what, like 400 episodes of this thing. I've thrown festivals. I'm speaking to people all the time. If you see me at a networking event like COP28 or any of these Web3 conferences, I'm speaking to everyone. I'm seem like a pretty outgoing person. I was not always that way. I actually was a completely different person previously before I tapped into this passion of mine. I would sometimes even see people that I know and look the other way because I was a very different person. I would try to minimize interactions, and I would consider myself a lot more introverted. But one time I was at a student club meeting. I was actually invited by one. This is at a time where I was like definitely, not putting myself out there at all. I was invited by a housemate of mine to go to a student club meeting, and they were clicking through all the different ways they were raising funds for a good cause. This was also for a clean water project at the time, and one of them an event, and it was for a clean water well in Kipsugol, Kenya, and something inside of me just clicked. I felt this surge of energy flow through me, and even though no one knew me in that student club meeting, I like raised my hand and wanted to take on a leadership role in the event, and it was just that sheer enthusiasm that they like actually gave me a shot to take it on. And I knew that in order to make that first charity event a success, I had to set up a booth I had to speak with as many people as I possibly could. So that's what I did. I set up a booth in the most high foot traffic areas of university and just pitched every single person that came by. And eventually they were like, okay, well, I won't just come to your event. Like, how can I help you? That's what it kind of evolved into. It became an organization. It grew and grew and grew. And I kind of evolved into the person that I am today by trying a lot of different things, experimenting and listening to your body. Because your body has a way of showing you when you're on the right track towards doing something that you're made to be doing. And it also has a way of, showing you when you're not on the right track, or as opposed to when you are on the right track. There's just this energy that flows through you, and it allows you to push through all of the inevitable challenges, because it is going to be hard, right? Starting a company is not an easy feat. There will always be challenges, but if you can tap into this energy, this purpose, this passion and drive, then you will become unstoppable and be able to do amazing things. So I really recommend to all of you guys, keep trying different things. So transparency, that's an obvious one. And that's a very clear aspect of where the blockchain can help, because as you guys know, there's something called an open ledger so that people can actually see how the money flows in if you're accepting crypto. And they can also see how the updates flow out if you are giving your updates via the blockchain. So through something we're calling the non-fungible updates. I'll get into that in a second. But another very clear problem, and the reason why we're seeing so much destruction, 67% of all of the rainforests in the world are gone. 67%, guys, that's a lot. And the reason for this, fundamentally, our economy shapes our world. And right now, our economy values the degeneration of nature more than it values the regeneration of nature. If that were flipped, we would not see the destruction that we see in the natural areas of our planet. But that is the case. And I fundamentally believe that blockchain technology has the opportunity to change that. We can inject our values back into what we value. And so that's where the non-fungible updates come in. I was hoping I could play this video, but it might be able to play. I will maybe get this to you guys later, or I can link you to it as well. But what we've developed is an AI tree counting technology. So basically what you can do is you can whip out your smartphone. Even basic smartphones in developing countries that people have has a decent enough resolution camera whereby you can film the trees, and from one direction to the next, it will count exactly how many trees have been planted. So we then have those tree counting overlays on top of the videos, which we then give to people on the blockchain. So that's the first way that we're tackling the transparency issue. And as these wonderful researchers at the University of Wisconsin and Villanova found that charities earning a seal of transparency from the nonprofit GuideStar gained an average of 53% more contributions 1 year later. So transparency works, guys. Even though we haven't launched a lot of the technology that we are going to be launching very soon in February, we do have these non-fungible updates down. And because of that, we recently got funded to do 1 million mangrove trees. And we've done 2.2 million mangrove trees because people, this is miles ahead of the transparency that is happening in other areas. So our AI tree counter can already count more than 97.5% accurately, more accurately than a human can count these trees. Okay, and that ties in to a broader proof of plant protocol. So I assume you guys are familiar with proof of work, how Bitcoin works, and solving these different these problems through computers. It uses a significant amount of energy. When Ethereum went to proof of stake, the entire energy usage worldwide went down by 0.2%, like a significant amount. And it's 99.9999% less energy intensive. Proof of stake's amazing. Proof of plant is how we issue this tokenized mangrove tree token called mgrove. The only way to issue this token, right? We can't just print it like the government does willy-nilly. You have to plant trees. You have to get it verified. Okay, so there's a planter on the left, and then in a decentralized way, anyone around the world, it could be in a developing country, as long as they have access to a smartphone, can plant mangrove trees, and they grow in 118 different countries. And eventually we'll have this for different types of trees as we develop different methodology around that. But right now, for mangrove trees, you can plant them, you can film a video, right? Step 2, the AI will count the trees. That's step 3. And then the DAO, so Treegen is a DAO where we have a governance token called TGN, which is also staked, like proof of stake, in order to verify that the trees are really planted. They're looking at different data points. One is the AI tree counting data, right? The one that's submitted, and also the previous videos that have been submitted, all mapped out with GPS coordinates. Because in our app, it takes the GPS coordinates as you upload the video. So we have the videos with the GPS coordinates. They're also looking at landmark data. Is there a big rock in the area? Just to kind of confirm that these trees were really planted, right? So you get the before, during, after. That's all verified. The DAO says, okay, this person has really planted these trees. So then they issue a 1/6 of an mGrow token per tree. And then every 6 months, you just do a health check, you film it, simple. Within 40 seconds, it's counted, and you can get it verified shortly thereafter, such that you get a sequential 1/6 of the token every 6 months. So after 3 years, you have 1 mGrow token approximately per mangrove tree. So if they don't all survive, those are reflected in the sequential years. So 1 mGrow token really represents a mangrove tree that's grown to at least 3 years. And if it's grown to 3 years, then there's an extremely high chance that it will survive after the point of 3 years. So that's how we kind of verify that everything is actually growing. And this is how we are able to exponentially scale regeneration. This is something that I'm really excited about. And this is also the potential of refi. So if this is good to know, refi stands for regenerative finance. It has its roots in DeFi, of decentralized finance, but also in regenerative practices, and how we can basically use real world assets in order to have regenerative crypto economics. And so what is the real world asset? Well, of course, people do value trees, right? When they say, oh, we planted 1 million mangrove trees, for example, that helps the business and that has value within itself. But then there's another big established market called the carbon credit market. And this is kind of how refi started. It was through carbon credits, right? Which is a pretty huge industry. When a company says that we are carbon neutral, they have to prove it. They have to actually buy carbon credits, which is basically just a scientific registry that has proven scientifically that 1 ton of carbon has been actually taken out of the atmosphere, right? So they have to go in and measure the soil in the case of trees. They have to measure all these different things. That's the carbon markets, right? The problem is, if you plant a mangrove tree today, it'll take 25 years to fully sequester 308 kilograms of carbon, and it happens according to a bell curve. So in the first 5 or so years, there's not that much carbon that's being sequestered. And I don't know about you guys, but we don't have that kind of time. Right? 25 years is a long time. The climate crisis is already here. We need to act today. We need to scale regeneration today. And we also are able to use this wonderful model to reward and make people bullish on regeneration. So let me explain this model. This is the model that leverages carbon forwards. Okay, so a carbon forward, similar to a carbon credit, is where an impact investor will come in and they'll buy the future value of the carbon credits before they actually become carbon credits. I was speaking with Klima DAO yesterday, one of the big kind of refi organizations that pioneer the space. They recently invested $2 million into carbon forwards. This is something because a lot of people think the price of a carbon credit can go up in the future to $150 and beyond because the demand will keep increasing as more companies go carbon neutral, but the supply might get restricted. Not everything that currently counts as a carbon credit will in the future. For example, electric vehicles potentially. And so there's speculation there. People are willing to pay. And by the way, if they pay today before the credit gets issued, they get a discounted rate, right? Because they're taking on some risk involved paying that in advance. So for a mangrove carbon credits, instead of spending $20, $30, people could come in and spend $5, $6, right? but then they have a delay between when it gets issued. But $5-6, it actually costs us 10 cents to plant a mangrove tree, right? On average. And of that 10 cents, it absorbs, like I said, 308 kilograms of carbon. So it costs us 32.4 cents to plant enough trees, which will eventually sequester 1 ton. So from that 32 cents to $6, that's a 19x multiple, right? And of the 19x, about 50% goes towards sustainability programs, supporting local groups to take care of the trees, for example. But that other 50%, we can multiply the trees, about approximately 9x, right? So we multiply the trees, and that's how it's exponentially scaling the trees. And this can make a massive impact. You're only, those numbers really do add up to this exponential growth curve, and that's how we can make a scalable impact. But we can also take a portion of that, and we can retroactively reward the people that made these public goods of tree planting happen, right? We can airdrop the holders of the mGrow tokens through things like optimism, retroactive public goods funding, grants, through things like carbon forwards, even leveraging other forms of ecological benefits. So we're not just thinking about carbon, we're also thinking about biodiversity. We're also thinking about soil. We're also thinking about equity. We're also thinking about water. We're also thinking about air. All of these things can be measured. And in the future, they can also have carbon forward agreements where you can take that future value of impact and put it into the actual projects today. And maybe we'll bullish on regeneration today. So this is something that I'm incredibly bullish on. And we are also gamifying tree planting, folks. So as I said, I'm breaking this record for most trees planted in a day by one person. But then we're also gearing up to break the next record. And as we do this on Earth Day, which is coming up April 22, we are going to be we're gamifying all of these different things. So as an individual, how many can be planted in a day, right? That we can also have countries up against each other. The 560 million record set by Ethiopia, that was done just by one country, right? Just Ethiopia. Imagine if all the countries come together and make a scalable impact. Imagine if I also have 4 contacts with 1 degree separation to Mr. Beast. We're trying to get these massive influencers involved. United Nations Earth Day, Rotary Clubs, there's 1.4 million members around the world. It's important that we gamify this experience. So leaderboards is one thing. Leaderboards are cool. But another really cool potential for gamification, and also how you guys can innovate with the next wave of NFTs that's coming, is through something called dynamic NFTs. And I'll explain what this is, and also how we're doing something kind of innovative in this space. And this is called, we're building the world's first dynamic semi-soulbound token. So you might have heard of soulbound tokens. This means non-transferable. So semi-soulbound means you can still trade the art, because by the way, the majority of the revenue that comes from these bigger NFT collections, the majority actually comes from the resale royalties, right? As it's resold and resold and resold. And so you can still trade the art, but those lights, which are overlaid, these are our dynamic metrics, right? Which change as you fund trees, the light on your mind gets brighter. As you plant trees, the light on your heart gets brighter. So your NFT visually changes. It's gamified in this way. You can see it change. And that part is non-transferable, because you wouldn't want someone buying your high score in a pinball machine, for example, right? Like that wouldn't make it a game if someone could just buy it. And so we're separating these two things of the underlying art and the impact metrics, those lights which are overlaid. Those are non-transferable. So in this way, we're able to have a visual representation. The reason why a lot of you guys own the clothes that you own is because it's a signal to the world. You want to say something about yourself. Well, more people are probably going to see your BFP than the shirt that you put on today, right? And so this actually has a huge potential to signal to the world, to gamify, hey, I planted a lot of trees. I funded a lot of trees. And whatever you want to communicate to the world around this is another way to gamify. Imagine for a moment if just a fraction of the energy that goes into training for the FIFA World Cup went towards the tree planting world championships, right? by actually making this a game with very clear, rules and, referees, for example, we can tap into a massive amount of energy that can actually make the world a better place, right? Mr. Beast is giving away $1 million lost to take your hand off $1 million, right? And imagine we do that for tree planting and have big, prizes. Or in developing countries, how hard people would train to really make that, and it'd be fun too, right? That's a key part of this, is making it fun. Speaking of fun, there's an entire movement. As I said, refi is not just a few startups. There are tons of startups all around the world which are really supportive. And by the way, they're uniting. There's something called Gitcoin. Vitalik also co-authored the paper on quadratic funding. So quadratic funding is basically the best way to allocate grant capital, because it's not just one person reading an application deciding yes or no. It's everyone deciding how funds are allocated every quarter. In this case, they've given out more than $50 million. They decide by voting, and you vote by donating at least $1 worth of cryptocurrency and proving that you're one person through something called Gitcoin Passport. You're not trying to game the system. And that's how they allocate the funds. And every quarter when they do this, we do something called Let's Grow Live, where we're live 24/7. And it's a decentralized distribution of content. We're live on 17 different platforms. It's also just decentralized input of content. So every hour we rotate hosts. And so everyone is really together in this. And we're also throwing a festival at the end of the year. It's a conference and festival, which is November 17 to 21. It's called the Regenaissance, right? Because there's going to be a new creative revolution like the Renaissance that happens when AI, reaches full AGI, and all these different Web3 technologies are tying into this. We're going to be able to have ideas and literally speak them into reality. And are we going to go down the path of destruction that the economy has taken us up until this point? Because the economy is valuing what it values, or can we reshift that? Can we inject what we really value in the world back into our valuables and shift this economy towards the Regenaissance? And that is what we're doing at the end of the year in November. You're all invited. It's right after DevCon. We also have a hackathon there, which will be both IRL and online. So if y'all want to get involved, you can scan either of these QR codes. The top one is my Telegram. The bottom one before that is my WhatsApp. So you can message me on either of those platforms. And if you either want to get involved in Treegens as a developer, as a business developer, as a community leader, whatever you might want to do, if you want to just plant some trees, if you want to chat or ask questions about this, my DMs are always open. On X, I'm at Jimi Cohen. That's JIMICOHEN. And these are my messaging platforms as well. And these two links here, which is t.me/TreegenFam or t.me/RegenFest, those are our community groups for that Regenaissance Festival that's happening at the end of the year, and for our organization and the community there. There's tons of resources in there, by the way, learning resources in our Treegens Telegram, contacts of impact investors, all kinds of different things, courses, etc. And so this is me and Rachel. We actually met at ECC, and we started this. By the way, in order to get green listed, that's like the new whitelist, right? In order to get the opportunity to buy one of these initial Treegen NFTs, which is likely launching in February, you first have to get green listed and touch tree. Touch tree is a very simple challenge with thousands of people do this already, from people in the royal family to some celebrities have done this, the royal family of Emirates. Put your hand on a tree, snap a photo, and use the hashtag touchtree on X. Very simple. It's not difficult to do, but it connects you with nature. It actually releases endorphins in your brain. It reduces stress, all this different stuff. By the way, I'm also in the Discord of the University of Ethereum, so you can message me on there. But yeah, I encourage all you guys, touch tree, all right, get acquainted with it. Read the Green Pill book. As I said, there's a whole movement of people out there. There's 100 refi startups every quarter, approximately. By the way, Treegens got first place. We got fifth, second, and then first place in the last 3 Gitcoin rounds. But y'all should definitely learn about all the different groups that are happening within the refi ecosystem. And yeah, definitely go down this, take the green pill and on. You know how in Matrix where there's the red pill and the blue pill, stay in this reality, explore really what's out there. The green pill, once you take that, once it connects in your brain that this technology can scalably make a positive impact, it can change where Web 2 has failed in terms of transparency, because it's all on chain. Everyone can verify the money that comes in, the updates that go out. Once you see that we can actually change what our economy values and our reality is just created by people not too different to you and I, right? But we can actually shape that. Once you see that, once it connects in your mind, and I recommend going to events too. Like ECC changed my life. I mean, I was spinning a few plates before the ECC before last. I was doing a few different startups, working a few different jobs. So then once I went there, and I was up until 4 a.m. at a French cafe just talking about carbon forwards, the potential of this, I dropped everything and I went all in. And this became my life's work. And I was able to go all in and be supported by this community. Once you realize that there's a movement behind you that will support you to build in this space, there's grant funding available, Optimism, Retro PGF, Gitcoin, CLTR. There's not just Cello. I mean, there's all this different grant funding that's available, as well as impact investors that want to make both a financial return and a positive impact at the same time. There's a community that will, retweet your stuff. They'll support, they'll show up for you if you get involved in this community. It is an incredible movement. Definitely, the Green Pill book is free by PDF online. You can read it, or you can get a hard copy as well. So check it out. Do let me know if you want to get involved in any of the things, whether that be the Regen Fest, the hackathon, or Treegens overall. And as you go to hopefully launch your own refi startup, remember my DMs are always open. You can always message me. Just scan one of these QRs or join our community, and I'll be there in the Telegram to answer any questions. Thank you so much. Let's grow. That is what we say. We're removing go from our vocabulary. We just grow. So let's grow.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Jimmy. This is just such an important topic to be discussing seriously. And I'm really grateful that you were able to join today and just provide some education at the University of Ethereum. So we do have some student questions that are teed up. I will start with the first question. This one's actually from me before we get into the student questions. But I'd really love to explain and just have our listeners and viewers understand today what a regen is, why this movement is so important. And I think you're a really great person to break this down.
Okay. A regen is, I feel like there's a little bit, like a sprinkle of degen in every regen. Okay. Not necessarily, but I thought, so degen, as you know, is the affectionate term that we use to describe people who are almost gambling on, altcoins and things like this. There's a little bit of degeneracy in these forms of, crypto investing, but it's used in an affectionate way and people own it. They're like, all right, we're degens. All right. So that's the degens, right? Now the regens are using the same fundamental technology, but not for, the casino, but more to make a tangible impact, to regenerate nature, right? A lot of people talk about sustainability. If you plot resources over time on a graph, sustainability is flat. Just keep them the same. Well, unfortunately, we're not even there. We're at degenerating our natural resources, right? 67% of the rainforest is gone, folks. So we've been degenerating. People want us to be sustainable. But we got a lot of catching up to do. 67% is gone. So we need to regenerate our resources. We need to increase the trees. We need to grow nature and all. There you go. Boom! Look at that. There's a regen. There's a regen right here. Yeah, that's the regen. Yes.
So I designed this blazer for ETH Denver. Shout out to Little Fresh Sam if she's listening. So yeah, this blazer that I designed, it says regenerate. It probably is showing backwards. I'm not sure. Regenerate on this sleeve and collaborate on this sleeve. And then on the back is an NFT I created focused on education. My first meetup I hosted, I created an NFT with the group. I just put together this meetup in Southern California and sat around with a bunch of people talking about how do we get to mass adoption and actually help with blockchain in our world. So we came up with this NFT together. It might be kind of hard to see, but yeah, it's kind of showing like the Library of Alexandria and the Da Vinci's Vivatrum Mad. It's basically showing uplifting people through education, and we can't do it without collaboration, doing it together and building a more regenerative world. So yeah, I've been a huge fan of the regen movement, and I created this before ETH Denver. I actually spoke at Shelling Point and got a chance to hang out with the walkie, and I had that green pilled book with me the whole time I was at ETH Denver, just constantly flipping through it for inspiration. And yeah, Jimmy, you also, when I saw you in Paris, you also had the book, so that was pretty cool. Yeah,
I love that.
Okay, we can move on to the next question. Unless, Jimmy, do you have any more comments or anything you want to share?
Well, okay, so we talked about degens, we talked about regens, right? And then obviously we have now the treegens, right? Which is kind of like the next wave that we're building. And of course, that's mostly regens that and there's a tiny bit of a degen in the regens, right? Because sometimes they're finding different things. But then there's a whole lot of regen in the treegen, and it's more specialized in tree specifically. It's like when people. There's so many complexities around refi using, DeFi mechanics and all this different stuff. But, plant tree, get rewarded. It's like one of the most straightforward ways of explaining refi. And this is what Steve from UETH, that's another public goods funding mechanism, by the way, that's out there. UETH, you can get like
I was just chatting with Griff today.
And they have quadratic funding too.
That's going to be one of our next guests, by the way. We're having Griff, founder of UETH and General Magic, come on as well.
Griff's a gem. Great human being. Yeah, love it. Okay, super cool. And yeah, Rachel, great vibes. I hope to see you at ETH Denver. That's super cool how you made that photo. So my connection cut out a little bit there as I went to the next Wi-Fi. But also, by the way, I dropped the video in the chat there just in case you wanted to show that. You can try to play the video. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, let's move on to the next question.
Sure. We have our AV person, Eureka John, in the background. Looks like he's going to try and figure out how to play the video. But in the meantime, my next question is from our... Oh, there we go.
Oh, we got the video. Okay, you guys get to see it.
We got the video.
AI tree counting, folks. So this is the drone, but you can also just use smartphones, as I explained. This is before. Initiate Treegen counter. Boom, look at that. Mountain them
so cool.
Yay.
Oh my God.
In Kenya. Yeah. That was a quick little video. And so yeah, that's what we send out to people, right? If you fund us with cryptocurrency, we send you AI tree counting data as well as thank you videos and things like this, all on chain.
And one other thing, I just want to commend you, Jimmy, for your community-driven efforts. It's actually very unparalleled, like the level of you showing up in your community so often, like the Gitcoin 24/7 radio. I've never seen anything like that. Just keeping a continuous stream of, someone there always hosting during the Gitcoin quadratic funding rounds. It's really just a serious commitment to your community, man. And just hats off to you.
Thank you so much. I'm very passionate about what I do. It fuels me being around people like you, Rachel. Like, honestly, I get energy from being around people who have that spark in their eye. Yeah, absolutely. And like,
whenever I see you, man, I'm just I get really excited and just like ready to go make the world a better place.
Let's grow. I love that. But, although it was my idea to do 24/7 live streaming during Gitcoin, it would not have been possible, just me, obviously, right, for 2 weeks straight. And so it really is testament to the community and the passion behind regenerative finance and everything that's being built in this ecosystem, that everyone's able to show up so consistently and grow the movement.
Absolutely. And we are going to move on to our next question, but anybody that's watching on YouTube or anyone that's watching even on our Discord right now, feel free to drop a question in the chat or any comments that you have, and I can share it up here on our screen. Now, shout out to Quantum Alpha, our Discord moderator, for this next question that she gave us. So yeah, Quantum Alpha asks, how can we get involved or help support this movement and clean our air in our individual communities? Are there any low-hanging fruit opportunities that we can easily implement? Great question from Quantum Alpha.
Well, how to get involved in your local communities. Something that has been discussed during these 24/7 live streams is building out a map of all the different tree planting organizations and opportunities to plant trees, right? And as we're gearing up for April 22, Earth Day, so mangrove trees grow in 118 countries. If you're in America, you could go to Florida and plant them. There are a lot of places to plant mangrove trees. And as I said, they're really efficient to plant. They also support biodiversity. They absorb 87 times more carbon. I'm a bit of a mangrove maxi, right? But if you're not near mangrove trees and you're not able to get near them, there are tons of nonprofits out there. A few that I could mention, One Tree Planted, for example. You can hit them up and be like, hey, would love to volunteer, would love to plant some trees. You probably also have a local nursery that's already done the hard work of germinating the trees and doing nurseries, etc. So that's another way that you could grow them. By the way, just on Max Impact a couple of days ago, I had a person on who was a part of Root Maker. So there's actually a way to make trees grow 2 to 3 times faster. And they can even bear fruits 2 to 3 times faster. And it's a simple casing, which is reusable. Instead of having those plastics that wrap around the trees in the soil as they're germinated, you can use these like hard plastic ones that have holes in the bottom that make the roots spin out and multiply such that when they're planted, they actually grow 2 to 3 times faster. And so that's a huge game changer when it comes to actually growing things. So I recommend trying to check out Root Maker if you want to germinate your own, or just go to your local nursery, super straightforward, and grow some trees. Whether that be food forests or whatever you want to grow. But if you can get close to mangroves, let me know. And if you want specific guidance on how to do these things, if I don't know myself, I will direct you to a tree specialist who can. Again, on X, I'm Jimi Cohen at JIMICOHEN. DM's always open there, or the other QRs. Oh, there we go. Look at that. It's up on screen.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah. So, okay, this isn't a question that we had prepared, but I'm just curious. Like, let's say you live like in a place like Southern California, like me. I've gotten involved with a nonprofit in my local community in Dana Point called Stand Up to Trash, and we do regular beach cleanups. To even do a beach cleanup out here, you need a permit. You actually need to get a permit by the city or county to actually go clean up the beach as an organized group. So, my question to you, Jimmy, is like, what's the most attainable way to actually plant trees in your local community? Do you need any types of permits in areas like SoCal and LA, New York? Like, how do you do that in I guess in the United States?
Yeah. So isn't that kind of crazy that you need a permit to pick up trash?
You don't need a permit to litter on the beach. You need a permit to
I was just gonna say that. It's like those guys didn't get freaking permits. Like, yeah. So yeah, there is bureaucracy sometimes when it comes to planting and okay, so for trees, there could be good reason. You might have an invasive species that's gonna dominate a certain area. You want to plant. So what we do is we always plant our mangrove trees within 2 meters of the same tree species, 2 meters of the mother tree. And in this way, it'll maximize the survival rates. You're not going to have a tree that's not supposed to be there because it came from the mother tree. And this is a strategy in terms of planting. Now, in terms of getting permits, it really depends where you are. Planting in your backyard won't require a permit. If it's a fruit tree, for example, you still might want to go to your local nursery and find out which trees are indigenous to the area, and they'd be able to guide you on that. But yeah, when it comes to planting in like a forest or a public area, you need to involve the government. And so in Tanzania, we went to the local government. They stamped a letter and they're like, go for it, grow for it. In Kenya, we had to speak with Kenya Forest Service, which is like the government entity. And then they were like, all right, cool, we're aware. And then you have the local community-based organization who's already engrossed in planting trees. And that was the process there. So the process can kind of depend where you are. In America, I'm not too sure. But probably you want to hit up your local government and or the environmental government division of the government and say, this is what I want to do. And they'll guide you on how to do it.
Got it. Well, that's really, really awesome advice. Really good to learn, Jimmy. Okay, so the next questions I have are it's from one of our chapter leads, Tomas. So the first question from Tomas, he has 2. The first one says, how is Treegens ensuring that actual planting and long-term survival of trees how is Treegens ensuring the actual planting and long-term survival of trees, part 1, part B, and how are you combating greenwashing concerns?
Okay. So that's kind of like 3 parts because there's like actual planting, then there's long-term survivability, and then there's greenwashing. So actual planting, proof of plant, right? So before and after, you have to film. we have AI tree counting. We have a DAO that has currency at stake, the governance token. They're verifying all the different data points. If they do it correctly, they get a reward. Approximately 5% of mGrow goes to the verifiers as their reward. If they do it maliciously and they say, hey, this is 10 million when it's only 100,000 trees, then they get their TGN slashed, right? Similar to proof of stake. And so that's proof of plant. That's how we ensure that they really are growing and there's additionality, they've been planted. Okay. Now, how do we make sure that they grow? As I was alluding to before, you don't get one mGrow token per tree. You get about a sixth for the initial plant. And then every 6 months, you get a sixth. So if let's say some percentage aren't surviving, then those are not issued in the future. And it's reflected in the future issuance. Now, beforehand, also to maximize survivability, I spoke about, okay, planting within 2 meters of the mother tree, the correct spacing. We also have methodologies that will guide you around how to plant the specific species of mangrove tree where you are, right? So we have methodologies for mangrove trees right now. And in the future, we're going to be, through collaborations, expanding that out to have a bunch of different methodologies on how to plant these things, these different forms of trees. And so that's how we ensure that they actually grow long term and track that, right? And it's very accurate with the AI tree counting. And the third one around greenwashing. So I see greenwashing as saying, trying to do a little bit of a good thing, but really just a tiny drop in the bucket, and then just spending a lot of money on marketing to bang your chest and say how good you are to help your business, when really you're not doing a lot of the good thing. So to combat that, well, first of all, the claims are super clear, right? It's not like, hey, we funded trees, we're a tree funding organization, buy more of this thing. It's like, well, how many trees? What is the specific impact? It's all on chain. You can see the videos that are on chain. We make this publicly available. Very soon we're launching a global interface so you can see all of the different non-fungible updates that have been issued, the money that flows in and out. So absolute transparency. That's one way of doing this. And then another way is like, well, we have to hold companies accountable to greenwashing. If they're trying to, do something the wrong way, you could poke them and be like, hey, how about this? Encourage them to do more of the good thing. Instead of just trying to like rip companies down and be like, shame on you, blah, blah, blah. Like encourage these companies to do more of the good thing. Because they probably did some of the good thing, right? To get to the point of greenwashing. So just say, hey, challenge you to do more. There's something called the Million Tree Pledge, and small to medium businesses have committed to planting 1 million trees, and they're making ways there. And then you could also have a 10 million tree pledge, 100 million tree pledge, 1 billion tree pledge, and then encourage these different companies to take the pledge, to do something that's actually significant, because it's freaking 10 cents. There you go. Million tree pledge. Look at how quick you guys are. I love it. And by the way, 4 Trees Club, which is the on the ground tree planting Web2 organization that I also co-founded, we're the official tree planting organization for the Million Tree Pledge right now. So by the way, there's 90 million trees. So there's about 90 companies that have signed on for the Million Tree Pledge. Only about 3 million of those have been planted so far. So there's a lot of trees still to be planted. Why were we selected? Radical transparency, AI tree counting. That's, if once we launch the different, all the different technology that I showed you guys, I think a lot of funding will flow towards where it's needed. As I said, 53% more donations flowed when there was a transparency seal of approval. But when there's radical transparency, when you can really see everything that flows in and out, so much more funding is going to flow to where it's needed. And I'm really excited for that day. So let's grow.
Let's go. I absolutely love it, Jimmy. I'm just so excited that we're able to actually feature Treegens and educate on how blockchain is going hand in hand with solving problems in our climate crisis. So yeah, we have one more question from Tomas, and then we're going to start wrapping up the session. So anybody listening or watching, anyone on YouTube or anyone in Discord, if you have a question, please drop it in the chat. Zaizen, I see you in the chat. If you have a question, please drop it in there. So yeah, our next question from Tomas is, I would really like to know if Treegens is planning to work with agroforest in Brazil. And this is a personal question. He says he knows they are working with carbon credits and they need to connect with crypto. So yeah, just wondering from Tomas if there's any connection there.
It's crazy you mentioned Brazil. That's literally that's where my brother is right now, setting up a mangrove project, and I'll be there very soon. we have a great contact with a person who is someone involved in Mangrove DAO, which is actually the first real refi project. I think it's back in 2017, according to Stenver from Denver of Solid World DAO. This is the first ever refi initiative. And so do you plan to go to Brazil? In terms of agroforestry, specifically, again, we're a bit focused on mangroves, but there is a group, as I said, this is a movement. We're all very much connected and supporting one another. And within this community of Let's Grow Live and the broadcast that we do, where we're together a lot for 2 weeks every quarter, is Agroforest DAO. And that's actually based in Brazil. So there you go. Look up Agroforest DAO and you will find an amazing organization that is really helping with the deforestation challenge from a different non-aggressive route, instead of trying to protest and say stop illegally cutting these trees, because people get killed. People get killed when they try to just stop these illegal deforesters, which is really sad. But a better way to go about it, a better way to grow about it, is to support or rather to grow these food forests and for the culture to change, right? This is what is absolutely crucial for economies and for communities to realize that these amazing forests are more valuable to us when they're alive than when they're dead, right? And so that's why I say 50% of our carbon forward revenue is going to conservation initiatives. So some of these will be beekeeping that happens adjacent to the mangroves. Mangroves create some of the most delicious honey in the world. It's dark and filled with antioxidants and of course organic, because they're all natural forests, right? So by supporting beekeepers next to the mangroves, then they're going to start to protect them, right? Mangroves also are amazing for fisheries. They actually filter the ocean water and help with the fish. They're amazing for biodiversity, as I said. So supporting fisheries nearby, right? That's another way to support with conservation, supporting, crowdfunding, all these different things like that. And so by changing that mindset over time, that these forms of nature are more impactful, more valuable to us when they're alive, by injecting the value back into it while it's alive, then we can really start to see the change that is necessary for this next few decades, which will really be the pivotal moments of, did humanity step up to the plate to solve the climate crisis, or do we just let it happen? And it really takes everyone. It really takes a movement. It takes all of you doing what you can to play your role in solving this problem. And there is a role for you to play. I encourage all of you, as you're really finding what your purpose and your passion is, to try different things, see what sets your soul on fire, see what aspect of this movement you could fit into. Is it in community? Is it in development? Is it in, collaborations or partnerships or whatever it may be, right? Keep experimenting, tap into, okay. I said before, I might share the meaning of life with you guys. Okay. So let me just drop it on you real quick. So, what is the meaning of life? I think that the answer to that question is actually disguised within the question itself. It's hidden within the word meaning. What's the meaning of it? If something gives you meaning, what does it give you? It gives you a sense of purpose, right? You have meaning, a sense of fulfillment, a sense of aliveness that stems from that meaning. And so it's different for everyone, right? What gives your life meaning might be different to what gives your neighbor meaning. And so keep experimenting, keep putting yourself at the edge of your comfort zone, right? Because that is where growth happens. That's where you can discover what actually can give you meaning. And so, again, my DMs are always open. Thank you for listening, everyone. And thank you for having an open mind to all these different concepts, because I really do believe they can fundamentally change the world, and you have a role to play in making that happen.
Absolutely. Well, Jimi, I usually like to end off with asking our guests for parting words of wisdom, but I feel like you nailed it, man. I mean, we're talking about helping the planet, planting trees, the meaning of life. I mean, this is really great stuff, and using blockchain to help with these problems, right? And even AI. So I think technology, Jimi, has really gone hand in hand for you in doing good for our planet. So yeah, I'm just really grateful, Jimmy, that you're able to come on today. And I'm going to go over just our last 3 resources before we end the session today. And yeah, this is last call for any questions, any comments, anybody listening on YouTube or Discord, drop them in now if you have any last minute questions. But yeah, I will just pass it off to Jimmy to give our final resources here for everybody.
Okay, well, in terms of final resources, do jump into our Telegram. Remember, it is t.me/TreegenFam, TREEGENFAM. t.me/TREEGENFAM. In there, you will find contacts of, I believe, more than 24,000 investors, angel investors, Web3 investors. There we go. Links at the bottom. You will find a passionate community that is ready to support you in your impact journey. You will find we've got like online courses that are shared in there. We've got grant opportunity, like 300 plus grant opportunities shared in there that are probably relevant if you want to build in Web3. There's all kinds of things. We have a channels, and one of the channels is called Impact Alpha. So definitely check that out. I will leave you with a quote by the Beatles, and that is, "In the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make." So go create and spread as much of it as humanly possible, because it will probably come 360 and kiss you on the cheek someday. So spread a lot of love. Much love, guys. Thank you for coming through.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for anybody listening that's not already in the UETH Discord, hop in our Discord, say hi. Jimmy will be around. And for the next week, we'll be talking with him about how you can actually use this technology to create real world positive change. So thank you so much, Jimmy, for joining today. I'll give you all a couple minutes back and we'll end 3 minutes early here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today, and we'll see you next week.
Ciao for now. Let's grow.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.